We've all seen it. Maybe you've seen it on the internet. Maybe it's a friend or family member. Worse still, maybe it's a friend or family member, but you only find out on the internet. Know someone who used to be vegan, who maybe even used to come on Instagram or YouTube and take their shirt off and boast, present themselves in their bikini bottoms or whatever it was, about all the positive benefits they'd had from a vegan diet. And then one day they hit their limit. One day they just decide they can't digest beans anymore. They can't cope with the vegan diet. And do they modestly adjust the vegan diet to suit their digestion? No. They swing to the opposite extreme. They start attacking and denouncing veganism, and they become outright carnivores. We've all seen it happen. I have one friend. We're not close friends, but we're close enough that we've talked about our personal lives. Like, she's someone I've talked to about my marriage and my divorce, and she's talked about the things she's been through on her end and stuff. We're close to that extent. She used to be an advocate for veganism here on YouTube. She even published cookbooks. She had a YouTube channel. She had for years. And what was it that pushed her over the edge? Not just quitting a vegan diet, not just questioning a vegan diet, not just adjusting it, but going all the way over to being a meat-eating carnivore. It's beans. It's the difficulty of digesting beans, at least in our culture. Shout out to everyone in the audience. Hi, Lars. Hi, Nacho. Hi, Whale. Nice to see you all here. This is the kind of video where I just decided, why not do it as a live stream? Why not? When I lived in Toronto, Canada, so this would have been about the year 2001, I was a relatively young man, and I was already shaving my head. This is unusual. Canadians are quite taciturn, English-speaking Canadians. They don't strike up conversation here. But there was a guy working at a secondhand CD store. So those of you watching this in the future, you don't know what CD means. This is a form of paying for music from the barbaric past. And this guy had seen me there a couple times. He'd seen me over the years a couple times. And he said to me, he was trying to make the transition to shaving his head. And he really wasn't sure how to do it. And he wasn't sure what he was doing wrong. Could I talk him through what my approach is? It's the only time this happened in my life. And he was shocked by my advice. He was going out and buying the most expensive razors and the most expensive creams. And it's kind of natural. I mean, people buy a lot of things that way. I don't know. They buy cars that way. They assume if this is the most expensive car, it's the best car. I had a friend of mine once, he went to Italy and he bought the most expensive bottle of wine to give his girlfriend in Italy. Some of you will be able to figure out what I'm talking about. I've told so many anecdotes about my life. You'll know the friend who went to Italy. You'll know other things about that guy's experience in Italy for the videos. And he presented this to his girlfriend. And he said, "Oh, I assume this is a great bottle of wine." And she winced looking at the wine. She knew wine. And she said, "It is not completely terrible. The best bottle of wine is not necessarily, people who really know wine don't buy based on the price. They know things about the year or where it's from, when it's from, and what it is that makes a quality wine. So what I said to this guy about shaving your head was, look, these razors are a cheap, mass-produced product in a factory. It's hit and miss. Go ahead and buy a big bag of the cheapest disposable razors. And as you're using them, if you're paying attention, you will notice some of them work great, and some of them in the same pack are terrible. So you've just got to do this with a willingness, where if you go, oh, it seems like it's not working, you don't blame yourself. It's not technique. It's not that you're doing something wrong. You have to take that razor and throw it in the garbage and get another one. And the odds are the next one you get out of the pack is fine. Like these things are assembled, they're manufactured at such a low level of quality control. We want to say the difference from one razor there. And I talked this through with him, and he was stunned. You know what? There are some beans that in this same sense, from the minute they leave the farm, they're just no good. And it doesn't matter how much you boil them. It doesn't matter how you cook them. It doesn't matter what you do with them. Those beans are going to give you indigestion. And all you can do is throw them in the garbage. Now, I have never heard anyone on the internet admit that before. I've never heard anyone admit that about razors, and I've never heard them admit that about baked beans either. Now I think about it, whatever you want to say. I've lived all over the world. The quality of beans you get in a can in France, exponentially higher than the United States and Canada. The quality of green peas that you get from a grocery store in France, in a can, processed. You cannot imagine how much better canned peas are in France than they are in Canada. Now let's go a little further here. Lentils. Yellow lentils from Iran, anywhere in the Middle East, Turkey, North Africa, Southeast Asia, all around the world, farmers produce wonderful yellow lentils. Not in Canada. We have the worst lentils in the world, and they're the most expensive. What's more expensive, Canadian lentils or Turkish lentils or Middle Eastern lentils? Or I used to eat lentils in Southeast Asia that were farmed in Southeast Asia, in third world countries in Southeast Asia, okay? You can buy beans that are incredibly cheap and farmed in third world countries that are very high quality and very digestible. And you can buy beans or lentils that are very expensive and of seemingly fine quality and seemingly good packaging, right? That will give you terrible indigestion. Just like buying a bag full of razors. If the razor itself is bad, you just have to be willing to let it go. You have to have real detachment about the quality of the beans and what causes you indigestion. And guess what? Guess what the thing is, guys? Just like a bottle of wine, you can't tell by looking at it. Okay, you can't tell by just holding up a bottle, like looking at the color of the liquid inside, how good the quality of the wine is. Now, reading the label of that's different. Well, what year is this? Where is it from? There are things but I'm just saying, looking at beans, looking at lentils. When I lived in Saskatchewan, I even met and talked to the farmers a couple of times. They'd have lentil farmers. And bro, you could not win with those lentils. Now, this is only one aspect of the bizarre psychology of ex-veganism and of vegans becoming anti-vegans and outright, carnivores. I don't know if you guys are doing this. So you got some people in the audience. I see your comments coming in, but I don't want to digress too much. This is a video about one topic. Beginning, middle, and end is going to be about beans, digestion, and the psychology of attrition. The psychology of attrition from the vegan movement as it's linked to this phenomenon, and look, you know what, guys, I've heard people complain if you tell vegans that beans are giving you indigestion, the vegans will just say, boil them more. And that doesn't work. You know what the truth is? Sometimes, okay? Sometimes that's the problem. And sometimes you have beans where no matter how much you boil them, they're still bad, and that doesn't work. That's really true. That's really true. And, we just don't have a culture that appreciates beans or any of these ingredients. We don't have a culture that appreciates peas or carrots or anything else. We have fine wine. We have fine whiskey. We have a culture of those things, but, not peas.
I don't mean to interrupt, but
Jump in.
I want to say that if you buy a package in a plastic container of strawberries,
yes,
it's obvious when you can see
that's right.
This strawberry has gone bad. This
right. Strawberry,
I'm not going to eat this. But when it's a can of beans, you can't individually see each bean, and you don't know.
You can't tell by looking at them.
Yeah,
no. That's right. That's one way. I don't think you can tell with wine that way. So Melissa's saying with strawberries, you can look at them and have some sense of the quality. Maybe sometimes you're wrong too. Maybe strawberries look good on the outside. You bring them home, you're like, whoa, these were bad. Once in a while, peaches, you can tell by looking at the outside of a peach. Okay, it's true. You cannot tell by looking at beans. But some things in life are like that. We have this saying, if you got a lemon, it's a ridiculous saying. You can just end up with bad beans. What I see happening on the internet again, some of you will have friends who've done this. Friends that have done. people diagnosing themselves with extremely debilitating conditions because of the incidence of minor fleeting indigestion caused by beans. Now, here in Canada, the Mexican restaurants they don't even employ Mexican people. We have Mexican restaurants that are all like white British hipsters. You know what I mean? They open Mexican restaurants, right? But you can go to a Mexican restaurant in Canada where they're serving beans that are basically raw, that haven't been boiled or cooked at all, or been just barely, boiled or cooked or whatever, and you can have a solid 12 hours of indigestion. That's happened to me innumerable times. We went to a falafel shop here, right? We went to a falafel shop, and I'm sorry, but the woman was not Middle Eastern. This was a white Canadian hipster who'd opened a falafel shop. She has no cultural continuity with the falafel making cultures of the world. I think it was at least 10 hours of indigestion. I was like, yep, well, I'm glad we didn't do that for dinner, because from noon till midnight or something, I'm completely, disabled by the indigestion caused by the beans in this, obviously vegan falafel. And in case you hadn't got the point in this video, we're vegan, what happens. But having 12 hours of indigestion because of a bad restaurant meal, because of a bad falafel, because of bad beans in a bad burrito or bad lentils that you boiled in your kitchen, having 12 hours of indigestion does not mean that you have SIBO. SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth. You people have no fucking idea what you're talking about. SIBO is a condition that people have in the last few months of their life when they're bedridden ill, when they can't get up and walk around. It's totally debilitating. And it is largely comorbid with a bunch of other conditions that in plain English just indicate that your whole digestive system is breaking down. There are these young women who are on Instagram posing in their bikinis, showing, like, leaping and laughing and smiling and doing all these sports and living this, wonderful life. And they're doing it with a vegan diet. And up to a certain point, they're saying, hey, I'm so thin and strong and sexy and, athletic thanks to the vegan diet. And then they come out and say, oh, that whole time I was suffering terribly with SIBO. Sometimes they'll also claim like IBS or something. Guys, these are serious medical conditions. They think, like, they seriously convince themselves, oh, I was lying in bed and I had bloating and I had indigestion caused by eating these beans. Oh, it must be that I have SIBO. Like, dude, do you know the difference between the common cold and coming down with AIDS? Like, dude, like, really? The level of self-deception, hysteria, and then self-justification built on that fear and hysteria. It was like, well, now what are you trying to justify? Well, before you were an ideologically committed vegan, right? So they bought into the whole thing. It wasn't just a health argument, right? They bought into save the animals, save the planet, prevent people from having heart attacks, right? So, they've got to really roll heavy with this now. Like, oh no, man. Oh no, I tried a vegan diet and it gave me this mysterious illness called SIBO. Oh, really? Did you get a diagnosis? Do they have a blood test for that? Oh no, I just looked it up on Reddit. I just went to the YouTube channel of this guy, Goji Man. Guys, this is the other thing to remember, okay? I've spent a lot of my life around people with PhDs. Okay, a lot. There are people with master's degrees who are stupid and crazy. There are people with PhDs who are stupid and crazy. There are qualified medical doctors who are stupid and crazy. I'm sorry. It is not enough in this age, in the year 2021. It is not enough just to say, oh, but I talked to this guy. He's a doctor. I talked to this guy. This guy is an MA in nutrition. There are people with master's degrees and PhDs who are not just a little bit stupid or just a little bit insane. There are people who are completely stupid and completely insane who come out of those university programs. Now, again, some of you here, you might not have spent enough time inside those programs to understand what the process of evaluation is, what the process of selection is, what the process of rejection is, like what it takes to get in, what it takes to stay there. There are certain qualities that are selected for, in PhD programs. Like, I'm not going to say, absolutely anyone can get a PhD. One of them is patience. One of them is being a conformist. Being a silent, unquestioning. We used to say brown nosing person, somebody who is flattering to their superiors. You know what I mean? Sorry, so someone in the audience is saying 12 hours of indigestion sounds like a mild case of food poisoning. So, William, I know what you're saying, but if you've had food poisoning, and some of you never have, let me tell you something. It feels different, and the symptoms are completely different. Okay? The type of indigestion caused by bad beans is not food poisoning. Okay? I've had food poisoning. Melissa's had food poisoning. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's different. Yes, the vomiting and diarrhea, and I can remember food poisoning also having tremors, like where you're like as if you're cold, you're shaking. Sorry, I'm not saying this to you, William, but you're kind of this raises again the issue I mentioned before of assigning a fairly trivial symptom to some really serious illness, like this must be IBS, this must be SIBO, SIBO, this must be food poisoning. Like, no. You just ate something that doesn't agree with you. You just ate something your body is struggling to digest. And for your digestive tract, 12 hours is not a long time. It's a long time for you if you're trying to get your job done, but this is more than 24 hours for things to digest, all the way through. So here's a question. Okay, all right. Pavitra says, quote, "Hello, I buy beans and lentils in Asian stores in the USA. I know the difference. When I lived in France, they would have two different sections for lentils. They'd have white people lentils, and then they had the foreign food section for lentils. Really, and you would get different. They tasted different. You could buy lentils that were imported from Turkey. You could buy lentils. You could buy beans imported from Southeast Asia. I don't remember beans from China. It would normally be like beans from Malaysia or something, or Thailand. Occasionally, actually, you get beans. But again, you can get beans from all over the world. Anyway, so Pavitra says she buys lentils and beans from Asian stores in the USA. Soaking and pressure cooking works every time. But she does have the experience of eating out occasionally, especially from bad fast food places. So Pavitra, broadly speaking, I am agreeing with you. Because broadly speaking, the cultures that prepare high quality beans that you can actually digest, they're not this one. They're not this culture. And even the contrast between France and Canada. Canada is partly a colony of France. The difference in the level of cuisine, the quality of food, the quality of ingredients, it's just appalling, guys. Like just comparing Europe to Canada, let alone getting into those cultures, whether in Asia or South America or the Muslim world, the Middle East, Arabia, whatever you want to call it. Those people know how to farm lentils, and they know how to cook lentils. They know how to farm dates, and they know how to cook dates. Those are the cultures that do those things. And they do it very economically too. They do it very cheaply. Okay, so look, guys, I'm happy to talk about what you want to. If you, I can illustrate this with examples, but I'm talking about just a few psychological factors that really get politicized. So one is this psychology of feeling unfairly persecuted because you've had indigestion caused by beans. And beans are, for most of us, an essential part of the vegan diet. You guys maybe can't see it in the background. I use pea protein powder heavily. So I get a lot of protein from pulverized peas that have been dehydrated and mushed into a powder. It's great. But, so you don't have to eat beans. It's a different way to get proteins vegan. But if you're not using protein supplements, it's true, beans are a big part of our life in one form or another. We could say the same stuff all over again about tofu. I'm sorry, but I am not living in the homeland of tofu here. If you want great quality tofu at a great price, move to Hong Kong. I remember in Hong Kong, I used to be able to get soy milk that was made fresh that morning, and it was a slight green tint. They'd crush it that day, and they'd throw in some. It's mostly made out of dried soybeans. They'd throw in fresh edamame, and it would go bad within 24 hours too. It had no preservatives in it. They'd crush it that morning. You had to drink it that morning, or it would go off. It was a really short lifespan product. Okay, you want to live in the homeland of soy milk. You want to live in the homeland of tofu. And tofu over there is as cheap. I mean, it's cheaper than bread. You know what I mean? It's not, again, it's not like you go into the wine store and buy the most expensive wine and it's going to be the best wine. You can't go and buy the most expensive tofu made in California and it's going to be the best tofu. That's just not the reality of life on planet Earth. It's not going to be the same for beans or anything else. Okay. People have this strange sense that they're being punished or persecuted by having this indigestion. It's not fair. Right? And what do they do with this sense? They start thinking that all of the vegans are in some kind of conspiracy against them. This really, it's this shallow and it's this deep at the same damn time. We have 41 people in the audience. Only 15 of you have given it a thumbs up. What are the rest of you carnivores? Give it a thumbs up. More people join the conversation. If you give more thumbs up, I just say it'll recommend the video to more people, even including my own subscribers. Get some more people join the conversation. So guys, if you change your mind later, you can give it a thumbs down. And I'll tell you something else too. What I'm saying now, honestly, I say the same thing to meat eaters. Like as a vegan, it's not like I have one message for my fellow vegans and one message for meat eaters. Guess what? Meat eaters have indigestion too. Meat eaters eat beans too. Meat eaters go and have burritos, but the burritos have both beef and beans, and they have the same problems. They go, "Whoa, I went to that Mexican restaurant." If you know, yeah, right. Melissa's saying Indian food. They go up for Indian food and have horrible indigestion too. Meat eaters have all the same problems. You know. Is it different when you're a vegan? Yes. I mean, it's different when you're a vegan because there's this ideological, ethical, and political element. And again, you feel let down. You feel betrayed. It's like, well, the diet is supposed to work for me. The diet is supposed to save the whole planet. The diet is supposed to betoken my sense of moral superiority over others. You know, it's real. Keeping it all the way with you guys. You know, the diet means so much more than just a source of protein and calories. And then, whoa, you have this indigestion and you feel like the diet doesn't work. Now, I just say the word hysteria obviously is used with negative connotations. Obviously. There's no value neutral way to talk about hysteria. But I would say there's a kind of sincere hysteria in their swinging from having so much faith in the vegan diet to being disillusioned just by their own indigestion. And then blaming all the other vegans who aren't having this problem. Well, they must be having the same problem I'm having, you know, and this whole thing must be a sham. And then they get in touch with, you know, Spherage and the carnivore doctors and really, and then you hear them 5 minutes later, you know, we've had situations where we buy beans in bulk here. So dried beans in bulk that later you're going to soak and you're going to, you know, boil and cook. And like we maybe give the bag of beans like fortunes. They're really cheap here, you know. And you're like, oh, you know, this particular bag of beans, I had indigestion. I said, did you have indigestion after dinner? I said, yeah, you know, like we're talking about in our own apartment. It's not all beans. So mostly we eat black beans now. It's just this particular bag of beans from this particular farm is no good, you know, and we have had to take a bag of beans and, you know, throw it in the garbage. That's all you can do. Or you can compost it. You've had to give up and be like, well, okay, and let's buy the same species of bean. I mean, it's not even a species, the same breed or varietal. People say varietal in agriculture, agribusiness. You know, okay, you know, let's go over to this other shop and let's buy their black beans. And they look the same. Like to the naked eye, you can't judge. But the one set of beans is farmed in Saskatchewan and one is probably farmed in Mexico in totally different climatic conditions, in totally different soil by a different farmer. And guess what? They taste different and they digest differently too. You know, like there are differences in these things. I just say, I've mentioned the thing with red wine a bunch of times. You know, think about tobacco. You know, people who really care about tobacco can taste the difference between a cigar grown in Cuba and a cigar grown in the Dominican Republic. You know, if you don't know, these are two different islands, almost the same climate, almost the same soil, but it's not the same, right? I mean, you know, wine grown in France, in the west of France, as opposed to wine grown in the Rhineland in Germany. So think of the map. How different is the climate? How different is so? You can taste the difference. You can know the difference, right? We have a culture that looks at, you know, black beans as if it's a mass-produced solid plastic item. If I order 10 of these, this is a plastic phone case, actually silicone, they're all going to be exactly the same, right? Beans are produced by the earth and the sun and the wind and the moon and the stars. You know what I mean? Like, there's this really false expectation of consistency from the beans, and there's a false expectation of ourselves too. So I gotta say this. Many people who are atheists still to this day labor under a kind of delusion that this world was made for us, right? Like as if beans were created in order to nourish you. Now, there's a famous example of this in the internet, maybe 10 years ago. People used to joke with this example. There was a Christian preacher who was arguing against the theory of evolution. And his proof, like what he used, he did this in, I think he did it 100 times and then somebody put it on the internet. Like, something he did when giving lectures at churches was that he would hold up a banana and he would talk about how perfectly a banana is shaped to fit in your hand. And he would extol the virtues of the banana, that the banana is so perfectly suited to fit in your pocket and fit in your hand, and it tastes great and it nourishes you. And like this was proof of like God's divine intervention, like the world, as if the world is created to entertain and feed and nourish us, right? And sooner or later, someone got through and they're like, look, dude, this is what the banana looks like in nature before human beings intervened and started selectively bringing them and like adapted them to suit human. You know what I mean? Like this resembles a wild banana about as much as a French poodle resembles a wild wolf. Okay. Like, we've done things to nature as humans, there's no real resemblance here. And he stopped using it in his lectures, but for a time there were people on the internet criticizing this Christian preacher this way. Okay. But this same kind of fallacy, you know what I mean? On a deep level, even people who are atheists, they look at the universe this way. Like, oh, the universe wants us to be healthy and happy and flourishing. These are the same people who won't eat anything that came out of a can. These are the same people who will, refuse to use a toothbrush, like, because the universe didn't create you to have tooth decay or something. They want to believe that the world is created and shaped and guided by a benevolent intelligence, by a caring, disembodied parent that has provided these plants for you to nourish you. And it's not true. There is no God that created marijuana for you to get high. Okay? The marijuana plant, it wants to survive. It's trying to produce seeds for the next generation. It's trying to propagate its young. So Melissa mentioned the toxins that are in coffee. Now, coffee has more than one stimulant effect on people. It's not just one chemical that's in coffee. Actually, sorry, it's not even that. It's not just that we have only one physiological response to the chemicals that's in coffee. That's the real point. It's not really the complexity of what's in coffee. It's the complexity of what our bodies do in reaction to it. Interestingly, okay? Caffeine is in coffee to prevent insects from eating the coffee plant, okay? Cocaine developed its toxins that people also find exciting. Don't do cocaine, kids. Say no to drugs. But some people subjectively think it's pleasant to be on cocaine. It's not. God didn't create cocaine to get you high. God didn't create coffee to get you high. God didn't create marijuana to get you high. There is no God that created the banana to fit in your pocket or the palm of your hand or to taste great or anything else, right? The bean did not evolve to nourish you, and nor did someone design it to nourish you. The bean is out here trying to survive on its own. Now, just mention this briefly because I remember this came up in my classes at university when I was at. So just a question I can answer here. So Yomana, is it pronounced Yomana or Jomena? Jomena. I feel like strong bad here. Anyway, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce the name. Asks, have you tried the dish called fool from the Middle East? Yes, and I introduced Melissa to it. Many exotic and international foods. Melissa had her first time with me. Melissa had never had Indian food before she. Yeah. But yeah, I've had fool many times. Fool is made out of fava beans. So yeah, it's a memorable Middle Eastern bean dish. Yeah. I was on a roll there. Looking at the universe as a fundamentally benevolent, intentionally designed place that's intended to suit your convenience, your nutrition, that at a deep level is at the base of this somewhat hysterical reaction to having indigestion caused by beans, where they eat beans, and it's not just that they feel indigestion for 6 hours or 12 hours. It's that they feel betrayed, right? But look, if you buy a manufactured product, so this is supposed to fit my particular phone. I own 2 phones at the moment. But this is one of my 2 phones supposed to fit. If I get this and the holes aren't in the right place, it doesn't quite fit the phone, I feel like, what do you mean? This is supposed to be for the same model of phone. You feel betrayed. You feel let down. Why? Because this was made intentionally by a manufacturer. It is the product of an intention and a design by one of your human beings. And if you were deceived, if you were sent the wrong piece of plastic, that was also a decision maybe made in a warehouse by a human being. Did they say, oh, well, we ran out of the pieces of plastic for that phone. We'll give them a different piece of plastic and we'll make the same amount of money. Whatever the decision was, right? You feel deceived, you feel let down. But this is a much more profound sense of betrayal, because they're blaming the whole universe. They're blaming the world itself. They're blaming God. And they felt that veganism was an ideology that made the whole world make sense for them. Now, man's place in the universe made sense. Freely the Frugivore is still saying this. Oh, you have to understand, guys. Okay, can I really do Freely's voice? Can I really? She's a pretty coarse Australian. You have to. I gotta give my voice back. Freely is really a challenge to do Freely. I can do Valley Girl, I can do British, but to do Freely's particular form of kind of nasal, whining Australian accent, this is a challenge. You have to understand, guys. We were evolved to be frugivores. We're like these monkeys that eat fruit. We're not evolved to eat grains. We're not evolved to eat cooked food. This is your place in the universe. This is the universe's way of telling you that you're eating the wrong. You know, it's shallow and it's deep at the same time. You know, like I have no Australian friends, none. This hampers me. I've had British friends and things. I really haven't spent that much time around Australians, except when I was in Cambodia and this stuff. You know, when you feel betrayed by the diet, you feel like this whole ideology you signed up for man's place in the universe, for the human niche in the biosphere, for the history of evolution and the future of our society, that was all predicated on this groovy view of the world that precisely beans exist to nourish you, and that everyone else has it wrong. That, you know, that you alone have cracked the code, that you're in touch with the diet and the way of life that humans were intended to have, and everyone else is doing it wrong. You know, so they feel let down by that, right? And then very often, not all the time, but most of the time, there's this kind of intermediate stage of greatly exaggerating the illnesses they think are caused by the vegan diet. Oh, well, if I'm having indigestion caused by beans, if I'm having indigestion caused by tofu, it's another common one, you know. Oatmeal. Yeah, Melissa's mentioning oatmeal. Well, then that must be that I'm suffering from SIBO, or it must be that I have some other chronic, terrible health condition that's caused by veganism, because allegedly they didn't have any of these problems before. Now, I won't digress into this point, but every single one of these videos, these same people talk about the fact that they had these problems for decades before the vegan diet. That back when they ate a meat-based diet before becoming vegan, they had these problems. Guys, it's great. We got 52 people in the audience. We got 29 thumbs up. If more of you could hit the thumbs up button, more people will join. Here's an interesting question, going way off topic. Nacho says, "Hey Nacho, welcome back. I'll be honest. did you get off your last live stream to watch the Atheist Experience show? So no, great question, but no. We walk for exercise, and I take walks wearing, I think, more than 30 pounds of weight in my back. I wear a very heavy backpack to get more exercise out of the walk. But I had a walk and talked to my girlfriend and took a shower and did other things. I have not watched the Atheist Experience show basically ever. I mean, it's just garbage. It's just terrible. I did offer to. I got in touch with them. I wrote to them offering to appear on the show to talk about Buddhism. And they were assholes to me. They're famous for being assholes to everyone. But I felt I had something positive to contribute to that show. Well, sorry, Lydia complains she's still blocked. Well, you're not, Lydia, because we can see and hear you right now. Sorry, Lydia, I see your comment complaining that you're blocked, so you're not blocked. You know. So there's a great question from Menelik, or perhaps Menelnik, or perhaps Menelich. If you don't mind if I mispronounce your name in 3 different ways. Menelik asks, what do you do for a living? You're seeing it right now. Anyway, guys, if you want to hit the thumbs up button, it'll just help people see and come join the video while we are live streaming and make all of our lives a bit more entertaining here. All right, where were we? Digressing from one point to the next. All right. There is this profound sense of betrayal that comes out of ideologically committed vegans questioning not only the health advice and not only the ethical worldview, right? But the sort of scientific, evolutionary, and even cosmological underpinnings of their whole worldview when they figure out that plants can be poisonous. And let's kind of give credit where it's due. The pro-carnivore people, they always hit on this, and it gets results with their audience. What they hit on again and again is the idea of anti-nutrients, poison, venom that's in these plants, that plants have evolved poisons to prevent you from eating them. That's right. The tobacco plant evolved nicotine, right? The plant we make coffee from evolved caffeine. The cocaine plant evolved cocaine. So the cocoa leaf, it's true. There are poisons. And many of the plants we eat today have a form of latex rubber in them. It's incredibly common among the particular types of green leafy vegetables we as humans like to eat. If you see the wild variety and you break off a leaf, that there will be this white, liquid that comes to the surface, or break off part of a leaf, I guess I should say. And we have often selectively bred them to reduce the amount of latex. People who have latex allergies, there's a whole list of foods they have to avoid because they can't eat latex either. So why did they do this? They evolved these things to prevent themselves from being eaten, to defend themselves against insects and mammals and what have you. Yes, but think about, again, the psychology. Think about the perception of the problem as something separate from and connected to. Oh, by the way, so I did pronounce his name correctly. All right. Thanks for the feedback. That's a good guess. So the third one was correct. The third of the 3 options I went for. But look, okay. So there's a shallow level and a deep level to that too, right? So on a shallow level, there's just accepting, plants are our enemies. They want to survive. They're not our servants. They're not our parents. They're not lovingly feeding and nourishing us. There isn't a creator god or a designer that created beans or broccoli or bananas or anything else to help us. These plants are on this, but they're out here on their own. They've got their own agenda. They're working against it. And they will try to poison us or sabotage our digestion, do anything else just to survive. The plants don't work for us. The plants are working for themselves. Okay, right? The pro-carnivore people, I think it's telling that they hit on this again and again, that they're saying, well, unlike the meat of an animal, these plants contain these intentionally evolved poisons and anti-nutrients, and that's part of what your body is dealing with, part of it's, related. And thus also we have all the bullshit about the so-called FODMAP diet. I mean, SIBO is not the only, scientifically unverifiable, condition that's come out of this. There's a list of these kind of gray area conditions that nutritionists like to talk about, and medical doctors who work in real hospitals will raise an eyebrow if you come in asking about it. If you come in and say your faith healer told you that you have this condition and so on, say, oh yeah. Kind of not quite falsifiable, not quite physically real ailments that people convince themselves they have, right? But more broadly, right, they've shifted from a vegan view of the world as positively one in which nature embraces humanity and humanity embraces nature. If only you can discover that you are truly a frugivore, that you are truly meant to be a fruit-eating monkey and return to your ancient elders. And it shifts from that to a diametrically opposed view of what could be simply called a dog-eat-dog world. Suddenly, it seems that the plants don't want us to eat them. They'd rather eat us. That, in fact, monkeys will eat humans, which they will. Chimpanzees will kill and eat a human being when they have a chance, and every so often that happens. It's less frequent than shark attacks, but nevertheless, primates will kill and eat other primates. Primates will engage in cannibalism. Suddenly, it seems as if the mysterious creator God of the universe is a rather cruel and demonic presence who has set each of us at each other's throats. And the only way you're going to survive and the only way you are going to thrive is to embrace your inner carnivore, is to return to the Hobbesian war of all against all, right? Is to get out there and kill cows and eat veal and drink their blood and drink their milk. I don't think these things are related in a facile or shallow way. The people who go from vegan to ex-vegan to anti-vegan, they also go from a fundamentally caring and nourishing worldview and philosophy to a genuinely, authentically evil, violent, predatory philosophy. I mean, Jordan Peterson's daughter, she markets her bullshit as the so-called lion diet. Is that what you want to be? Do you want to be a lion among men? Do you want to be this kind of, solitary predator? I just say, to really question that. I know nobody wants to be a sheep, right? Nobody wants to be a sheep among men. Nobody wants to be a herd animal. You know what I mean? But what is it really? What is your morality and what is your view of your own place, within it? All right. Okay. So Frida says, eating raw meat does not sound healthy. So this is where, once they've made this ideological commitment, right, the extent to which they see only what they want to see is remarkable. Okay. So you may or may not have seen this, but they have this list of nutrients. They say, oh, here's a list of nutrients that's only found in meat and never found in plant food. Yeah, this will not even sustain a few minutes of Google searching. And the number one most popular claim believed by Dr. Jordan Peterson and his millions of followers, this is mainstream pseudoscience, the mainstream delusion, is that beef, muscle tissue from a cow is nutritionally complete. They will go out and claim that every single nutrient and mineral you need to survive is found in the muscle tissue of a cow. Will not even sustain a moment of Google searching. And if you bring up to them like, oh, what about scurvy? What about vitamin C? Again, it's not easy there's no effort at all required to come up with a list of nutrients that are found in vegetables, that are found in fruits, and are not found in dead cow meat. Particularly, again, we're just talking about one type of organ in the cow, right? Just the muscle tissue of the cow. Why would that contain everything you need to live? And they are committed to it. They are committed to living that lie. They are committed to seeing only what they want to see. And it doesn't matter how much you delve into the details about cholesterol, about blood pressure, about vitamin C or other nutrients, about fiber, about health from a million different perspectives, right? They've committed to this very fundamentally, frankly, evil view of the world. What they have to say to you is, in effect, don't you understand? Don't you understand? The plants are all full of poisons. Nature, which they formerly saw not just as their friend, but nature, which was really the underpinning of their whole philosophy and their worldview, right? Now nature has turned against them. So they feel that they, in turn, must turn against nature. They have embraced a way of living that is, in a phrase, dog eat dog.